This is The Corruption for Windows PC. This is a demo on Steam, developed and published by a company called Acellular, and it's targeted for release sometime later this year. It took me just over an hour to get through the demo portion of this game, and I think it was good enough of an experience for me to look forward to the full release. It's basically a first-person adventure game. When I first started the game, I was kind of in the mindset that it was going to be a first-person shooter where you had a rocket launcher, but it kind of wasn't like that, at least not in my experience. When it comes to rocket launchers, which is how they describe this game, to me that usually results in a large explosion and people flying around from the impact, and that's not what we have here. Instead, we get a first-person abstract puzzler that feels a little bit like Tron in its visuals. And I'm a fan of Tron, for sure, so I'm into this. It's not a problem. It just isn't a fast-paced shooter filled with crazy amounts of carnage, or at least not so far. It's basically a puzzle or a maze type of game where you happen to find a weapon within the first level. I think the graphics are crisp, and I played this one on a laptop, on the Steam Deck, and I played it on my desktop, and it worked well across the board. I definitely see more shiny reflections on the laptop or my main PC as opposed to the Steam Deck, but it just looks great no matter where I seem to play it. As far as plot goes, it's fairly simple. I guess you're basically in a digital world and trying to make your way out of some sort of a maze and on to the next one. I'm not sure if you'd even call that a plot. I don't know if you're human. I don't know if you're part of a program. I have no idea. It's just a reason that you're there. And that's okay with me right now. Going a step further, this digital world is also decaying, and there's a bunch of visuals in this game that seem to display that. We're going to get high contrast colors. You're going to get a deep black with reflecting light, and there are going to be neon reds and blues and a variety of digital looking items along the way. Maybe there's a flickering sheet of color or static displayed on a wall somewhere, floating dotted lines just hovering all over. It's not real world things that we're looking at for the most part. A lot of abstract shapes, and I guess things you'd naturally try to associate with sort of a digital world. There's really no explanation as to what you're looking at, or actually what's going on when you start the game. And there isn't much of a tutorial that lets you know what you're supposed to do. I mean, there are some basic instructions at the very beginning, but nothing that really explains what's happening. Truthfully, after the first 10 or 15 minutes of experimenting in this game, I kind of don't think we need much more. I think figuring out where you have to go is part of the puzzle experience. At least that's what I think. We get these odd and interesting mazes. Rooms, hallways, archways, short staircases, sometimes long staircases. You got occasional statues, random phones, pipes, just odd construction that basically create a maze in front of you that you have to figure your way through. In addition to this sort of maze portion of the equation, you get to sort of discover what you're supposed to do, I guess. Or at least my experience was you have to discover what you need to stay away from and what you shouldn't touch. There are these fluorescent orange, there's a fluorescent orange color that generally seems to be associated with something that if you touch it, it will teleport you. It basically teleports you back to earlier in the level, which would be, I guess, the last checkpoint. And then you just have to try that part of the level again. It doesn't really reset your progress overall, just your position. You also have some beings in this digital world, and they just look like these rectangular squares that are moving around. I mean, like little bits in a rough shape. If they see you, they do pursue you, and all they can really do apparently is touch you. And if they do, that teleports you back to the checkpoint again, so you're trying to avoid them. If you manage to have ammunition for your weapon, and you can shoot one of these, you freeze them in place, which is really nice, because if you get teleported back to the checkpoint again, any creatures that you've frozen already will remain that way, which is very helpful. I guess the thing is, the weapon has very limited ammunition. I'm not sure if that's 10 shots. I don't know. There's no number on the screen to tell you how much is left. But the weapon has a cartridge, and it's this weird, funky glow off to the right side. And as you shoot, that diminishes. So that's your meter, and it works. You can recharge your ammunition. You have to find these stereos that are kind of stuck inside some of the walls. You walk up to them and you just recharge. With the limited ammunition in this game and the fact that the weapon doesn't also shoot in a straight line, you have to learn how to aim, and honestly, you're going to be doing some running. And that's okay with me, because it handles great on an Xbox controller, and it helps when you're trying to run away from some of these weird creatures following you. The stages are designed in ways where it seems that there's not much that's obvious about what to do or where to go. I mean, some are a little more narrow than others, so okay, I would imagine if I'm in something that's kind of condensed sideways, and obviously that wants me to move forward, but it's not really obvious where you have to go, and I guess that's kind of the exploration of the game. In particular, the last level of the demo, I was really clueless as to what I had to do, and I probably spent the most time on that level, and I found myself just walking back and forth trying to touch everything and try to shoot things and just figure out what trigger I had to push in order to move forward. Sometimes touching something digital seems to open up part of a path, or things change on screen. And also there are panels that you have to shoot. Usually the ones that are fluorescent, that fluorescent orange I was talking about. Some of those you have to shoot, and that seems to make things happen as well. On the last level of the demo, eventually I dodged and I interacted with enough stuff that opened up finally the end of the level. Although I'm not exactly sure everything I had to do to make that happen. But I did manage it, and I got through it. So far, this game really works for me. I really love the visuals. I think it's pretty darn clever, and the contrast, I think it's pretty excellent. And when you're in a digital world like this, I imagine you can do whatever you want in terms of level design. So there's sort of something freeing about that. And I think experiencing new levels is going to be interesting when this finally comes out. I think the only thing that seemed maybe a little off to me, and this is pretty petty, the sound of when you walk around, it sounds like you're wearing really hard heels. So it sounds super uncomfortable. And the clacking speed, it kind of doesn't feel like it's matching the speed of you walking around. That's pretty specific, I know, and it's pretty minor. But it's the only thing in the game that seemed a little strange to me, but you do get used to it. Besides that, I really had a fun time making my way through these starting mazes. I also found myself falling off one or two of these mazes in a few points, and when you fall, you fall. It is a chasm, and you can look upwards and see the geometry fade away. It's some pretty interesting visuals, and honestly, for a demo, if you're looking for something to do, this one's probably worth your time. It's pretty darn interesting. Well, that is all I have today for the corruption for Windows PC. I'm going to check out the other levels when this releases later in the year, and I'll be probably having a full video when that happens to see how this one unfolds. Thank you for stopping by for a look, and hope to catch you on another video.